His name is Henry. He's all about those classics. Dust off the old ones. And
Can't be
gives
done, I
them
tell you.
shine.
Can't be done.
He finds some goodies and finds you some baddies. And reviews ones folks from forgot. His name is Henry. He's over the mustache. 1 year century reviews are here. His name is Henry. He's just over the mustache. 20th century reviews are here. 20th century reviews are here.
Hello, I'm Henry R. Mockingbird, your host with the mustache. And let's talk about the king of the jungle, the wild man with a loincloth who swings on vines and is the ruler of the animals, the ruler of the apes. This is... Oh no, you don't. Ooh, right in the bananas. Now, I am not talking about George of the Jungle. I am talking about Tarzan. Created by Edgar Rice Burroughs in 1912, Tarzan would become a popular character in the realm of literature, but would later become really popular in the realm of radio, stage plays, and of course film, making his film debut in Tarzan of the Apes in 1918, and the sequel, Romance of Tarzan. Arguably, the most famous version of the character came from Johnny Weissmuller, who would play the character from 1932 to 1948. Although many other actors would also play the ape man, Weissmuller's talent has been regarded as the ultimate Tarzan for rooting the character in pop culture. Not to mention, Young Woman in the Sea has just come out, and it's been getting a lot of buzz from both casual critics and critics on Rotten Tomatoes. But given how this is the same site that gave Cuties a high score, yet gave Hook a low score, I don't know if that's really saying a whole lot. But I know what you're thinking. What does Young Woman in the Sea and Tarzan have to do with each other? Well, I'll tell you, my viewers. Johnny Weissmuller is in A Young Woman in the Sea, and Johnny Weissmuller played Tarzan. And before he played Tarzan, he was a champion swimmer. This has been the first edition of Henry Mockingbird's Pointless Fun Facts. Not to mention, Hollywood is no stranger to sequels even back then. And I've taken a look at one of these sequels. On Veterans Day of 2021, I reviewed Tarzan Triumphs, where Tarzan fought Nazis and gave us these immortal lines.
Now, Tarzan, make war.
For this review, we are going to take a look at the second film in the series, Tarzan and His Mate. Let's stop monkeying around and get to this review. Pun intended. Englishman named Harry Holt from the last film is joined by a friend to go on a safari, and they try to locate Tarzan and his new mate, Jane, who was his former girlfriend. So tension rises as Harry Holt tempts Jane into going back to civilization, while him and his friend try to go after Ivory to make them stinking rich. So what are my thoughts on this movie? Well, I like it. The film was directed by art director Sautry Gibbons, who did art direction on Ben-Hur 1925, Pride and Prejudice 1940, which I technically already reviewed, check it out, wink wink, and The Great Ziegfeld, and The Wizard of Oz, and many, 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 many more. And was co-directed by Jack Conaway, who also directed the original A Star is Born and Tale of Two Cities 1935. After the first movie made bank at the box office, both MGM and Edgar Rice Burroughs wanted to capitalize on that success. MGM producer Irving Thalberg and several other MGM execs struck up a new contract with old Richie Boy and got Johnny Weissmuller to come back after he was finished making the German film SOS Iceberg, finally released in 1934, and while it didn't make as much of a profit as the first movie did, it was very critically successful, getting great reviews from the New Yorker and Variety, and launching an entire franchise. So, what a wonderful day! The effects in this film were done by A. Arnold Gillespie, which, if you remember my 100th episode, also did the effects in The Wizard of Oz. And while the effects in this film are not as groundbreaking as the effects in The Wizard of Oz, they are a pretty mixed bag. Like, there's stock footage of an alligator, and it cuts from that to a mechanical alligator, which either looks like a bath toy or a theme park animatronic, depending on the shot you're looking at. There's even a scene with a rhino where they use rear projection effects. And while there is some shots where you could tell where the rear projection begins and where it ends, there are some shots where it blends seamlessly. Part where Cheetah's mom goes after the rhino, and I'm pretty sure the rhino flips her. There's even a part where Jane tries to get away from the rhino, and the rhino and her look like they're in the same shot. There were also a ton of other effects that were used in this film, like matte paintings. There was even a guy in a gorilla suit. For Cheetah's mom, they used a guy in a chimp suit. And for a Tarzan movie, it has some pretty fun action, like that alligator scene I mentioned. Tarzan just flips around back and forth with the alligator until he stabs the alligator and it gushes blood out of its wound until the lake is nothing more than a bloodbath. I have expect blood to be on Tarzan. Jane and Harry's friend gets captured by some natives, and we get a chase scene between them and the natives, and they try to defend themselves, only for the natives to pretty much put them into a corner. And as a staple of so many of these movies, they stay behind while Cheetah goes to get Tarzan to help them. One of Harry's men gets captured by the natives. The natives tie him up to a tree, slice his chest open to feed to the lions, but before this can go all jungle exploitation, Harry tries to save him, only for him to get mauled by a lion. Jane actually gets to be confident in this scene, grabs a gun, and shoots at one of the lions. But her gun is out of bullets after that, so she has to use jungle surviving skills and puts a fire around her to keep the lions away from her. The film really gets going when Tarzan meets up with Harry, and we still see that Tarzan is still learning how to speak English, repeating what other people say like a parrot, which is how he learned to talk in the first movie. We also learn that Cheetah has a mom, and she's also named Cheetah. So wait, they're both called Cheetah? After that bit of confusion, we finally see Jane, played by Maureen O'Sullivan, wearing a loincloth bikini, baby, which has gained the film a cult status, which kind of explains how when I put this movie in a poll, everyone voted for this movie. Jane's loincloth bikini is the most iconic outfit she has in the series, to the point where someone made a version of it on Pinterest. And it's easy to see why. I mean, just look at it. She has a midriff, and yet ironically has no belly button showing. She's showing her whole leg, hip, thighs, and everything, and she's barefoot. She's an untamable jungle girl, and she's gone wild. Back in 1934, Jane's loincloth bikini was seen as risque, because in the book, she was seen as a cultivated British woman with manners. So, seeing her in such a provocative outfit was seen as very risque. Which is why, in the third movie onward, Jane would be wearing a loincloth dress. They sit down and have a cup of coffee, and they drink some of that coffee, but Tarzan doesn't like the coffee. Cheetah does, which makes sense given how Cheetah has an affinity to drink anything you give her. Jane gets shown a bunch of clothing and a bunch of accessories like a hat, stockings, shoes, and even a dress. And we see Cheetah walking out in drag.
Hello, Henry.
Hello, Chimpy. I ain't seen you since you pretty much jumped the banana ship on my King Kong review, back when I used to call you Chimpy rather than Chaplin.
Yeah, that wasn't cool, Henry.
Okay, from this point forward, I'll call you Chaplin. I have matured since then, not to mention Chaplin was your name when I got you from that circus auction. So, do you have anything to add to the review?
Yeah, that wasn't cool, Henry. Not really. I'm just not a fan of you making drag jokes about monkeys.
Let's move forward with the review. After that, the next morning, Tarzan wakes up holding his knife as he sleeps, and he goes to get breakfast, which I'm guessing is a mango or a papaya he's throwing at Cheetah. He swings back towards his grass hut treehouse, where we see Jane is sleeping, and Tarzan wakes her up, and she's sleeping in the nude. But we do get a bit of banter between them. Should I say love banter, before they go to their morning swim, where Tarzan just throws her in and she falls out of the dress and she's pretty much swimming naked. Yep, Jane is skinny dipping with Tarzan. Fortunately, that's not Maureen O'Sullivan in her birthday suit. It was her swimming double, Josephine McKim, who also swam in the 1928 Olympics. Maureen O'Sullivan was later asked if she would have done the nude scene. She said yes, but she couldn't swim. And if you remember my Birds of Paradise review, you may have remembered that there was a nude swimming scene in that movie. And no coincidence, Dolores Del Rio, who did that scene, was married to the director, which may have inspired this scene. But William Hayes, being, William Hayes and the Hayes office, took one good look at this scene and were like,
Say, what kind of movie is this? Ain't nobody got no clothes on.
Cheetah's mom dies, which leads to Tarzan tying her up in a tree rather than burying her in the ground. And we get something we never get from Cheetah, an emotional scene where Jane is comforting her. Is supposed to be a comic relief. And in stories, it's very difficult to have a character who's known for comic relief pull off an emotional scene and have it be effective. So I gotta give this movie some props for actually making me feel for a chimp. Another great emotional scene is when they're in the elephant graveyard after stopping Harry and his friend. She stops to visit her father's grave. Now, her father died at the end of the first movie in this graveyard. Want to know what's even sadder? After this movie, they never bring up Jane's father. Jane never references her father, not even to her adopted son, Boy. Picks up a watch and she ties it around Tarzan's arm, and she tells Tarzan to keep it always, and we never even see that watch again. I say if you want a good jungle adventure, swing into this movie. 5 gold stars. I'm Henry R. Mockingbird, your host with the mustache, signing off.